Good evening, all. So, today we are going to discuss about CTET Paper 2 English Pedagogy questions, and these questions are in the February 2026 CTET question paper, Paper 2. So, let's see what are the questions. Before going into the discussion, I would like to mention that there are totally 15 pedagogy questions, and in all the type of pedagogy, be it Hindi pedagogy or English pedagogy or Tamil pedagogy, anything, now I am going to discuss language 2 English pedagogy questions. So language 2 English pedagogy question starts from the question number 136 and ends at question number 150. So 136 question says that a teacher gives the following assignment to her students of class 8. What type of writing would this be described as? So for that she mentioned some instructions. It is in pairs, brainstorm, jot down ideas and develop them into a good write-up, giving 2 arguments in favor and 2 against the topic. Students do not need to have printed books anymore. So the options given are personal writing, expository writing, discursive writing and descriptive writing. If you see carefully from the word arguments itself, we can say that it is some sort of assignment which is debate based. So this type of writing is known as discursive writing. Alright, from here the keyword here is given is arguments, wherein students have to perform in favor of the topic, and they have also to perform against the topic. 2 arguments each for and against the topic. So the answer is discursive writing. If you see here, the explanation for this answer is discursive writing presents multiple viewpoints on a topic. Learners examine both sides of an issue by giving arguments for and against it. Since students are required to provide both arguments supporting as well as opposing the statement, the task develops critical thinking and balanced reasoning. Therefore, it is a discursive writing activity. So, the answer is discursive writing. Option 3 is the correct answer. Moving on to the question number 137. Which of the following is true of the innateness hypothesis of language acquisition and language learning? Options are, option 1 says efforts of the parents, peers and those near to the child as well as the environment are responsible for language acquisition. Option 2 says language is unique only to humans and only the human who can speak a language. Option 3 says language faculty present in children makes them conceive language through intense practice and drilling. Option 4 says language faculty present in children is responsible for the production and acquisition of language learning. If you see here, they are asking about true statement regarding innateness hypothesis of language acquisition and language learning. If you see, language acquisition is an innate process, that is, it is a natural process. So language faculty present in children is responsible for acquisition of a language by any children. So if you see, this innateness allows that there is no need of intense practice or drilling. So option 3 is wrong. Option 1 says it is about effort of parents, peers and those near to the child as well as the environment. No. Language acquisition is something which is inbuilt or innate by the child from the time of birth itself. So option 1 is also wrong. Option 2 says language is unique only to humans. No. Even animals have their own language. Even other organisms, they have their own language. Alright, if you see, language faculty present in children is responsible for the production and acquisition of language in children. Option 4 is the correct answer. Let's see the explanation for this answer. If you see innateness hypothesis of language acquisition, this is actually very important concept, LAD or language acquisition device. This device is actually already present in our body, in our brain. This was discovered by Noam Chomsky. He said that children are born with an innate language faculty known as the language acquisition device LAD. According to this theory, children naturally acquire language because of this inborn capacity. Language learning is not mainly the result of drilling or imitation, but of an inherent, it is genetic or inbuilt or natural human ability. So this is nothing but innateness hypothesis of language acquisition. Moving on to the next question. Which one of the following are bottom-up listening activities? Bottom-up listening activities, we have to find out. There are 4 options. First option says dictation, close listening, use of multiple choice questions, identifying positive and negative statements. Option 2 says summarizing, listening to the whole message and applying the background knowledge. Option 3 says rearranging the jumbled words into sentences as one listens. Option 4 says recitation of poetry, extempore speech, debate and discussion. Before going to choose which is the correct option, I have to mention here what are bottom-up listening activities. If you look over the detailed explanation, it says clearly that bottom-up is nothing but from the basic level, a child or a learner is learning a language. That is, from a child would learn alphabet first, then he or she would learn phonetics, that is sounds of each alphabet. Then the child would connect alphabets into words to sentences, sentence to paragraph to a book. All right, so from the bottom level to higher level it is moving on. So this is actually bottom-up approach. Here they are specifically asking about bottom-up listening activities. If you see here, bottom-up listening involves understanding language from smaller units such as sounds, words and sentences, and then building meaning. Activities such as dictation, cloze test and identifying specific statements requires learners focus to linguistic details, making them bottom-up listening activities. If you see, dictation is actually at the level of, it is actually alphabetic level. When a word is given to a student and the student is able to write it after listening each sound, so it is actually at sound level. Close listening is actually, there would be a paragraph given to students wherein there would be some blanks left over in the paragraph and they have to listen to audio or recording something and they have to answer according to their understanding level based on the listening comprehension which they have done right now. That is actually close listening. MCQs you already know, there would be 4 options, there would be 1 question and you have to choose the best option out of those 4. And identifying statements, it is next level. So dictation was actually sound or letters alphabetic level. Close listening was word level MCQs, you would be reading sentences, and lastly you would be able to identify statements in paragraph. So it is coming from bottom level and moving towards the higher level. So this you can either call it as bottom up approach or bottom up listening activities. So if you see here, option 1, dictation, close listening, use of multiple choice questions, identifying positive and negative statements is the correct answer. Moving on to the question number 139. What does pedagogical realization of materials mean in language learning? Options are embedding activities and tasks to promote language pedagogy, embedding the pedagogy into the materials to enable the teacher to adopt the pedagogy, enabling the teacher to understand the pedagogy in her classroom, and option 4 says to list the various pedagogical strategies for classroom use. Here the question itself says that pedagogical realization of materials. So here we are talking about how we use materials or teaching learning materials TLM effectively to adopt child-centered education. So option 2 basically option 2 says that it convinces us that this means that exact idea of pedagogical realization of materials, that is embedding the pedagogy into the materials to enable the teacher to adopt the pedagogy. Now why so? Let's see into the explanation part. If we see to the explanation, pedagogical realization means designing teaching materials so that the desired teaching learning approach is already built into them. Such materials guide teachers in implementing the intended pedagogy and help create meaningful learning experiences. So what is pedagogical realization? It actually means that teaching learning materials created for effective classroom usage while teaching learning process, it actually reduces teachers' burden on depending the textbooks alone. So it would be an effective way for learning process of students, as well as it helps in or aids in teaching process for teachers as well. Moving on, question number 140. All learners in school begin their education in the mother tongue and move on to add many languages as they move forward in school. What is this known as in language education policy? The options are culture specific language in education policy, 3 language formula for a school education. Option 3 says mother as base for language education. Option 4 says mother tongue based multilingualism. If you see, the question itself says that the education is to begin in the mother tongue of any learner, because a learner could easily understand his or her own mother tongue, and it helps in effective learning process since he or she would be able to understand very easily, right? So from this word itself we can say that option 4 is the correct answer, mother tongue based multilingualism, because the statement says that first the learners get educated or learn in their mother tongue and then move on to add many languages. So for initially their classes are taking place through mother tongue. Let's say I am in Tamil Nadu, so my mother tongue would be Tamil, right? So initially at the primary level I would be learning it in the Tamil language only. Slowly, while gradually moving to the primary level and upper primary level, the government would be introducing English as the second language. And even more, While moving towards 6th, okay, 6 to 9 secondary level, there is a possibility in case of CBSE they have announced the third language should be Hindi. This is actually the 3-language formula. Okay, but here they have insisted upon the mother tongue. So option 4 is the correct answer. Moving on, 141 question says Sandhya reads an article on machine learning to find some information. Here the Sandhya is reading to find some information. What is her reading known as? Options are glancing, reviewing, skimming and scanning. If you see, glancing is not the correct answer, reviewing is not the correct answer. It should be one among skimming or scanning. Reviewing is completely reading to check whether it is correct or not. Glancing means to just look over. Okay. Skimming is done to find the main idea of a particular concept. Skimming is nothing but reading any passage or a page to understand the main idea. But here they have mentioned to find some information, the Sandhya is reading an article. So the answer is option 4, scanning. Option 4, scanning. 142 question says, what is the following task known as? A piece of small text is made into 2 different chunks or every alternate sentence is given to a pair and each learner dictates to the other and the other writes. This process is reversed to make the other person listen and write, and they can later work together to finalize the whole text. So here a small piece of text is made into different chunks and it is actually a pair activity. One learner dictates and the other writes, and when the other and it goes on vice versa. Okay, while the person is listening, the other would be writing, and after completing his writing portion, that person would narrate or read it aloud, and the person who initially dictated would be writing this. This is known as paragraph dictation, or if you see here, generally it is known as paragraph dictation, but here specifically 2 persons are only mentioned, right? So the correct answer is mutual dictation. Mutual dictation, this is a specific case where learners are made into pairs. If they are doing in groups like more than 2 or 3 people, 3 or 4 people, it would be paragraph dictation. But here only 2 are working on, and this type is actually dictation. So option 3, mutual dictation, is the correct answer. If you see here, mutual dictation is an interactive language learning activity in which learners exchange information orally and write down what they hear. It develops listening, speaking, spelling and collaboration skills simultaneously. All these skills, all the L, S, R, W, all the 4 are developed at a time. So simultaneously all these skills are developed by the technique or activity mutual dictation. Moving on to question number 143. Learning is a search for meaning. Therefore, learning must start with the issues around which learners are actively trying to make meaning. Which educational philosophy advocates the above idea? If you see, if somebody is able to if a learner is made to change his or her behavior while the learning process, that would be behaviorism. Constructivism is nothing but here the students are able to understand the subject with according to their real life situations. That is, they can easily take meaningfully learning process. It is learning process is occurring very meaningfully. They are able to connect with real life issues and solve them. So option 2, constructivism, is the correct answer. Even though, let's look into other options. Option 3 says multiple intelligence. Option 4 says structuralism. Structuralism is something when we study about structures, grammar structures, rules, those all come under structuralism. Multiple intelligence, you all know, basic intelligence in human beings would be different kinds. It can be musical intelligence, linguistic intelligence. These are the topics which come under the concept of multiple intelligence. So the answer would be constructivism. So if you see here carefully, constructivism views learners as active participants who construct knowledge based on prior experiences and new information. Learning begins with meaningful problems and situations that encourage learners to make sense of their experiences. So constructivism is the correct answer. Moving on, question number 144 says that what do form-oriented language inputs refer to? Form-oriented is nothing but something which we study in the written form. So first option says meaning of the inputs for learning the language, use of vocabulary, pronunciation and grammar. Option 3 says inputs which focus on information. Option 4 says the potential of the input for learning to write. Let's look into the answer and its explanation. If you see carefully, the answer is vocabulary, pronunciation and grammar. Form-oriented input, it actually focuses on the structural aspects of knowledge such as grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation and sentence patterns. It helps learners notice and understand different language forms while learning language. So please keep in your mind that if a question is asked for what is form-oriented language input, so definitely you should keep it in mind that grammar or vocabulary, whatever we learn to learn a language meaningfully, all those concepts would be covered in the topic form-oriented language inputs. Next question. So here the question for answer for 144, the option 2 is the correct answer, use of vocabulary, pronunciation and grammar. Question number 145. Which of the following is assessment for learning? Assessment for learning, assessment as learning, assessment of learning. There are 3 concepts. So assessment as learning, which actually refers to self-assessment which we do by ourselves to check our learning levels on our own. Assessment of learning, okay, assessment of learning is nothing but after the completion of a teaching learning process at the end of the academic year, generally an annual exam would be conducted, which basically focuses on how much you have learnt, okay, the learning, whether the learning objectives are being satisfied by the learning outcomes of the students, to promote the students to the next class, or to provide grades or marks. So that is actually assessment of learning. Here assessment for learning. Assessment for learning is actually done during the teaching learning process to ensure that students, if they are making any errors while teaching learning process, the teacher has to identify those errors and help students to recognize those errors and correct it themselves to lead to a meaningful learning process. So let's see the options. Assessments designed to monitor and improve students' progress during the teaching learning process. Yes, this is the correct answer. Even though it is the correct option, let's check with other options. Assessments designed to know students' progress at the end of the year for consideration to promote them. No, option 2 is actually wrong, because this statement says about summative assessment, which is actually assessment of learning. Option 3 states assessment by the state to diagnose the achievement of learners at a particular stage. Here, this assessment refers to the achievement test, not assessment for learning. So, option 3 is also wrong. Option 4 says assessment designed to monitor students' progress at the end of each term. At the end of each term, even this would be considered as summative assessment, because it is done after an end, means when a particular period of time you are taking a class, and at the end of that session, completely after 5 months or 6 months once, that would be considered as assessment of learning or summative assessment. So option 1, assessments designed to monitor and improve students' progress during the teaching learning process, is the correct answer. Let's be quick. Question number 146, what is productive vocabulary? If you see from the word productive vocabulary, you can say that there are two types of skills. One is receptive skills and the other would be productive skills. Receptive skills are listening and speaking. Alright, and receptive skills are listening and reading. Because we just listen, we are not producing any information. So when we produce any information which we know, either while speaking or while writing. So productive vocabulary is nothing but words that we use in writing and speaking. Alright. Moving on to question number 147. Which one of the following statement would you not endorse for the teaching learning process? Of poetry. Poetry is for exercising the imagination of learners. Yes, absolutely. To increase the imagination power of students, poetry is being taught, definitely. Option 2 says poetry is for working with language. Yes, through poetry, students can be introduced to different structures of language. It is absolutely correct. Poetry is for pleasure. Yes, poetry is being taught for excitement, to make learners feel enthusiastic while learning. So option 3 is also correct. Option 4 says poetry is for teaching grammar. No, option 4 is the incorrect. Hence, option 4 is the correct answer for this question. Moving on. Question number 148 says that the language used in the classroom in the various content areas as the teacher presents and interact with students. What is this language skill known as? Options are, option 1 says basic interpersonal communication skills. Option 2, language for real purpose. Option 3, language register. Option 4, cognitive academic language proficiency. It is actually a direct question. If a language is learned at home level, okay, you would say it as basic interpersonal communication skills. That is, basic interpersonal communication skills, or BICS, says that when a child learns a language without any intention, that is, language acquisition takes place, and it is only for communication level, that would be considered as BICS, or basic interpersonal communication skills. Whereas CALP, cognitive academic language proficiency, this is done to understand the content of the subjects at school level. So language proficiency is must to understand the concept, the words that are being used in textbooks, by the students so that they could easily understand the text in the textbook and comprehend the concept in a very easier manner. So option 4, cognitive academic language proficiency is the correct answer. Moving on, question number 149. Which type of grammatical knowledge does the following statement mean? Knowledge about the form, describing it and applying it in limited practice. Knowledge about the form, describing it and applying it in limited practice. Here this refers to as declarative knowledge, because before applying what we see, for example, now I'm speaking with you all in English, right? Before speaking with you, before communicating in English to teach this particular topic, to discuss this particular question paper, I have to prepare myself whether I am speaking correctly, with proper punctuation, with proper pauses, in proper tone. Okay, so when I know all these rules, then only I would be able to apply in real life situations as I am doing now. So this knowledge is nothing but declarative knowledge. The last question of the video. What does the following task involve? Learners are given a hotel menu and they have to order food for 4 people for an amount of rupees 1800. One is a vegetarian and the other one is allergic to mushrooms. They have to keep rupees 40 for auto rickshaw to go back hostel. Learners are speaking about what they will order, their preferences, and keeping the money to get back to the hostel. So here automatically when they are calculating how many amount they are having with them, how many they have to have with them to reach hostel back, all these would be considered as problem solving, and the way they think would be logical thinking, problem solving, all these come under the category of higher order thinking skills or HOTS. So option 1, higher order thinking skills, is the correct answer. I hope I have discussed all the answers in a very easier manner such that you are able to comprehend each and every question which I have discussed right now. If you really like the video, please like, share to your friends and subscribe to our channel Learn with Indra Lakshmi. And if you have any doubts, do mention in the comment section. I will be checking your comments and quickly replying to each and every comment as soon as possible. Thank you one and all.